It's 7 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mayor is out, so I'm filling in his place. First presentation. Finance Director.
This is the 20th year that the city has prepared an annual comprehensive financial report to date. All 19 previous annual financial reports were award winners. In our continued pursuit of excellence, this latest annual report will again be submitted for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting with the Government Finance Officers Association. The city's independent auditing firm, Allen Gibson Hulick, completed the audit of the 2013 financial records. Brian Holst, Vice President, Assurance of Allen Gibson Hulick, is here tonight to present the completed fiscal year 2023 audit to the governing body.
I did bring a couple printouts here. I know these were in your agenda, but I never know what's going to be on your screen, especially when I bring PowerPoint. So I figured it might be easier to have it in front of you. All right. So as Matt said, we're here to talk about the 2023 audit results tonight. And with that said, there were three things attached to your agenda packet. One was the opinion that goes in the financial statements. One was the governance letter, which is what I passed out. And then there was an internal control report that we'll talk about briefly later. So the first thing, which is what everybody always wants to know, is what's in the opinion. The opinion was unmodified. Since we are accountants and we don't use flowery language, that is the absolute best opinion you can get, which means great job, everything was good. We just are boring and say unmodified. So good job. But I think that's typically what everybody is looking for and kind of the main result of our audit. So I put it on here first. But with that said, then we'll go through the governance letter for most of what I'm up here to talk about. On page 1 of the governance letter, it lists out the date that we sent you the engagement letter, which was last October. That has a lot of the sort of details as far as what we were engaged to do, what we were going to do, what the city needs to do. And then also in March, we issued a planning letter that kind of went more into the detail about when we were going to be on site and those types of things. The main thing I wanted to point out here is that nothing changed from those letters, so everything kind of followed along the process that it should have, and that those are still valid. Also on page 1 of the governance letter is where we talk about any new standards or things that you were required to implement during the year. There was only one that had a significant impact this year, and it's GASB statement number 96, which is subscription-based information technology arrangements, which is terrible to say. So SPITA is the acronym that's been being used for that, which doesn't sound any better, but at least it's shorter. But the end result of that is that effectively it's the lease standard that you implemented last year just for software. So the rules are primarily the same. Any software agreements that you have that extend over multiple years, if you've got payments that you're making, you're now recording a right to use asset for that software offset with a liability for those payments that you're making. So you only had one, and it was about $450,000 this year. So that's new, it's in the financials, but it doesn't really substantially change anything. It's just kind of in the same section that the leases were last year. Other than that, the things that were new in this year were determined to not have a significant impact on the city. On the next page of the letter is where we talk about accounting estimates. And really we put that in there because there are a lot of things that aren't really black and white numbers. So things like your bank balance, we can send a letter to the bank and find out exactly how many dollars you have at the end of the year. But there's other things that require some sort of level of estimation. And the primary ones are your other post-employment benefits, your pension, and your allowance for uncollectible receivables. And there's a lot of information on that page in the letter that I'm not going to go through. The short version of that, though, is that for the first two, the city contracts with actuaries that calculate that number for you. And so we get copies of those reports and look through it all. with the allowance for uncollectible receivables, it's primarily based off of your historical collection trends. So we do point that out, though, because there are things that aren't quite as black and white, and want to make sure that that's drawn to everybody's attention. The other thing on that page then that we would normally list is any audit adjustments that were found, either ones that were posted or ones that were determined to not be significant enough to need to be posted. Fortunately, this year there were neither of those two things, so no adjustments identified and posted, nor ones that were determined not to need to be. The next slide here is really where we would talk about any issues or problems that came up as a result of the audit, which again, following on the theme that we've had so far of good news, as you're reading through all these bullet points, basically all they say is there were no issues that came up during the course of the audit. So nothing as far as timing, as far as dealing with management, as far as accounting things being recorded incorrectly. So again, big paragraphs, lots of words to basically say, we didn't have any issues, nothing was wrong with respect to those. This slide specifically is where I wanted to talk a little bit about the internal control report that was in your agenda packet. Didn't feel like we needed to print it out because, again, there weren't any findings or comments or issues that we needed to go over. But did want to just point out that there are things that we look at besides just the basic numbers themselves in the financial statements. So we are looking at internal control policies and procedures. We're looking at accounting treatments that might be able to kind of go one way or another depending on facts and circumstances. We're looking at all of the disclosures in your financial statements. We're looking at the estimates like we talked about earlier. And so that letter is where we would talk about, if we found issues with those internal control policies or if we found issues with compliance. And the fact that there weren't any, again, is good news, and also why I didn't feel like it was necessary to hand out the letter to go over today. So again, good news, no issues, no control problems that were identified as part of the audit or anything we needed to talk about today. This slide really is just listing out the new standards that are becoming effective over the next couple years, which right now is actually a fairly slow time. I think they were really pushing hard to get to 100, and then they slowed down a little bit on their new standards. And the compensated absence one here, number 101, is probably the only one that will really have much of an impact next year on your financial statements. And the short version of that is that your sick leave is probably what's going to be impacted the most. And historically, you only book it as a liability if you pay it out upon retirement or termination. What the standard is going to ask you to do now is see how much of that typically is used by those employees, regardless of whether they're being terminated or retiring. So it's going to go up a little bit probably, but how much is just kind of depend on the circumstances for every city. So it's not really going to change anything as far as how it's presented or disclosures, but there might be a slightly larger compensated absence liability next year. So other than that, though, nothing really big coming down at this point, like leases, for example, where it took a bunch of staff time to try to figure out what you were going to need to do and how to implement it. This one should be a little more straightforward with coming up with an estimate for how much is being used. And then once you have that, it should be about the same tracking as it is now. And then the last couple pages of our letter really are where we kind of point out a few different things that don't necessarily relate specifically to findings from your audit, but are just things that we put in to draw your attention to. And the first one there being cybersecurity risk. It really started becoming a big issue around COVID. So we're going on 4 years now since all of that happened, and it is definitely not slowing down. So we put it in all of our letters just to remind everybody about it, to kind of keep it in the forefront of your minds, especially when you're having budget discussions and things might come up about IT spending and stuff like that. It's only been a month or two since Kansas City had an issue. Jackson County had something not too long before that. My wife works at Liberty Hospital, which had something happen 6-8 months ago. So even the big entities with the huge IT budgets are running into these problems still. So again, nothing that we found in your audit that we wanted to bring out specifically, other than to just remind you that this is still an ongoing thing and still important to keep in mind. The policy and procedure review is really just more of some additional services that we can offer as a firm. There are definitely things like on the finance policy and procedure side where we would impair our independence if we were helping too much with evaluating those, but we have HR professionals that can do compensation studies and look at some other policies and procedures, things like that outside of sort of the finance scope. So it's really just kind of listing it in there. And then the final thing is a reference to our AGH University website, which has some webinars throughout the course of the year. For CPAs, it has continuing education credits, but it also just has some useful information out there and is a free resource that we have. So we always like to point that out at the end. So with that said, I think, again, nothing really concerning that we needed to go over today. I want to thank Matt and his department, probably especially Nancy and Jackie and Amy, who's not here, for fielding all of our questions throughout that process and making it go smooth. Nobody's ever excited when they hear an auditor's coming, but we certainly are appreciative when the finance department is cooperating with us and helping things go smooth. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, but that was all I had for today.
Council, any questions? Nope. That's it. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Matt, that went smoothly because of your staff, so thank you. Presentation item number 2. You're up again, Matt. You have 3 minutes.
I won't make that. I'll try and cover everything concisely. So tonight's presentation on the budget can be kind of broken down in these different components. I'll kind of highlight the budget process, provide a financial update, have a discussion on budget highlights, and then present a couple of different mill rate scenarios for council to consider. So developing the 2025 budget, we started it back in March. I presented the preliminary results on the year-end financial report for 2023, just to kind of give a snapshot of where we were. And then in April, we discussed outside agency budget requests and also the capital improvement program. Here tonight, we're going to be focusing on kind of budget policy, some of the overall kind of things that are driving the overall budget, and then also the tax levy funds. And then on July 1st is the consideration of a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate and setting a public hearing. And then kind of a new addition to the budget calendar is a July 15th budget discussion on enterprise funds. And then the public hearings and approval process will vary depending on what council decides to do with the revenue neutral rate. But those will be in August or September. So on general fund revenues, one thing I want to point out is overall revenues have been pretty flat. So 23 overall total general fund revenues were basically the same as 2022. We're projecting, we had to revise our projections down for 24 and 25. There's basically the revenue growth is about 3.2% over the 3-year period each year. This kind of gives a more overall picture of the general fund forecast. One thing I want to highlight is in 2024, if you look at the difference between the blue and the red graph, there's a noticeable budget deficit in 2024. And this kind of, all of our revenue projections outwards are kind of revised downwards since we revised the 24 projections down. Multiple rounds of budget cuts have occurred, cutting approximately $1.5 million from the budget already. These budget cuts, along with recent changes in health insurance, will help correct the structural budget deficit in future years. The city has a target fund balance of 30%. The fund balance started at 45% at the end of 2023 and is projected to spend down to 25% by 2029. This slide shows 5 months of sales tax collections this year. Sales tax revenue for the majority of months in 2024 were less than 2023. Some of the budget challenges we've been dealing with. If you recall, MPR no longer provides property and liability insurance for our electric assets. We had to go out separately last year for coverage. That came in higher than we anticipated. Taking into account the increase in general property liability insurance for this year and increasing the budget to cover kind of that delta on the coverage for the electric assets, the overall increase to these line items is about 25%. The combined line items for property and liability insurance total $1.38 million. and premiums for 2025, an increase of $285,000 over the prior year. Please note the total costs for these line items was only $679,000 in 2023. We're the fastest growing metro, or city in the metro for cities with a population over 20,000. As we grow, this puts a bigger strain on city staff to maintain current service levels. There were 13 new positions requested from departments. After multiple budget meetings, we narrowed this down to 7 recommended positions. Of the 7, only 4 are in the general fund. This slide lists out the new positions that are being recommended. Please note that this slide only has an estimate for the position's annual salary. The cost of the benefits can vary widely for new employees. Factors like, do they have CAPERS retirement system or KPNF, or what they actually select for their health insurance options. All those can vary greatly on how much the benefits will cost for the positions. The overall driving force behind these position requests are growth in the community, and then also succession planning. We have 4 promotions in the being requested for the budget. One's to promote a building inspector to a building inspector 2, a plan examiner to a building official, utility inventory clerk to a procurement specialist, and payroll coordinator to a payroll administrator. There are also being a couple other title changes, but those won't have any budget impact. Those are more housekeeping issues. We are recommending merit market increases of a 3% merit pool and 2.5% market adjustment. That is in line with other jurisdictions around the area. Please note that market adjustments affect vacant positions and also new employees. Only employees that have been here since, or that are hired before June 30th of this year will be eligible for merit increases. For equipment upgrades and replacements, there's $130,000 for a new City Hall generator. In the police department, there's kind of a comprehensive package to replace body cameras, car camera systems, data storage, tasers, facility recording system. It's a kind of a multi-year payment plan where it'll be $109,000 in 2025, then $207,000 each year for 4 years afterwards. The valuation estimates we got from the county indicated about an 8.9% increase. Please note that these are there are some pending tax appeals that could lower the estimated assessed value. Keeping a flat mill rate and capturing the valuation increase would increase property taxes on the average single-family home by about $3.51 a month. For the purpose of this analysis, we assume the average Gardner home appraisal to be about $325,000. The revenue neutral rate would decrease the mill rate by 1.494 mils. A mill is worth approximately $344,000. The revenue neutral rate would limit property taxes to the same dollar amount as the prior year and would also lower allocations of motor vehicle tax and county sales tax in future budgets. So I have a couple of different mill scenarios for you to consider. And we're talking about 2 different funds. We have 2 tax levy funds, the general fund and the bond and interest fund. When we looked at the flat mill levy scenario, essentially the general fund target fund balance is 30%. We're projected to end 2025 at 34%. And at the end of the 5-year forecast, it drops down to 25%. So essentially general fund balance is where it needs to be. So the focus on, if we rolled back mills, would be on the bond and interest fund. So in the flat mill levy scenario, we'd have basically fiscal capacity, the ability to go out and issue about $10.5 million in principal amount 10-year GO bonds. In the revenue neutral rate scenario, that bonding capacity would drop to about $6 million. In a quarter mil reduction scenario, it would drop down to about $10 million. And then in a half mil reduction scenario, the project capacity would drop down to about $9 million. So we're seeking council direction on budget feedback. And then also, more importantly, like what mill levy scenario do you want to consider so we can include it in the resolution for July 1st? And at that meeting, you consider the resolution and setting a public hearing. On July 15th, we'll follow up with a budget discussion focused on the enterprise funds. And then the public hearings on the R&R and the 2025 budget will be in either August or September, depending on your decision on the mill rate. Any questions?
Thank you, Matt. Council? Serious.
All right, let's go back to the flat rate scenario, please. Okay, so we're looking at fiscal capacity with the flat mill scenario of 10.5 million. Understanding we're going to we've got to keep that target fund balance at above 25% of expenditures. We made it clear to the body that we want to keep that because that helps us secure our bond rating, our financing. So now let's go to the next slide with the half mil. So we lose $1.5 million reduction. We lose $1.5 million on our fiscal capacity over a 10-year period, correct? So it's $1.5 million a year over 10 years?
What it's really showing is if we went out next year and basically issued, wanted to issue geo bonds, a 10-year geo bond, the principal amount on that series would drop. So
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
So that's the bond interest servicing of that, basically.
Yes.
So that will restrict our bonding capacity to a certain extent, but not to the extent if we went to an R&R.
True.
And we understand R&R is a pipe dream. We understand that it's not, it doesn't work. I mean, we've got high inflation, we've got stagnant growth. There's no way you can make R&R work. I mean, just the numbers don't work, okay? Especially in a growing community, we understand. But I'm looking at that half mil reduction. I was running numbers myself on this. I think we can live with $9 million service capacity. We can't go down to 6.x, but we can definitely go to 9, and that would help to alleviate some of the problems that our citizens are seeing with their incomes being constrained and their costs continuing to rise. But I'll throw it out there. I just threw the hand grenade out there. You guys can try to kick it away.
Steve, if I understand what you're saying, giving that $500,000 back, a $500,000 reduction, but also that would be a $500,000 reduction of increasing property values. Is that correct?
No, it's not. So the property values stay the same regardless.
No, I'm saying as the property values go up, the taxes go up as well.
Yes,
So
they do.
by giving a $500,000 reduction, you're giving actually more than $500,000 relief.
No, they're still gonna pay more.
Yeah.
Right, I understand, but it's just gonna be,
But-
they're gonna be paying less more.
Yeah, the rate of increase is going to be less, but here's the thing: we understand that zero is not an option. R&R is
I agree.
for all intents and purposes. I know there's folks out there, we've got to just hold the line and not spend any more money. That's not possible in a city that's growing. We've got 1,000 people coming into this community every year. It's not possible. Okay, I would rather be realistic and say, okay, because we're going to be able to hit all our budgetary goals. I think what the requests are from the city staff, regardless of what level we use, it's going to affect our bonding capacity.
Right.
Okay, so I'm comfortable. We know the economy's slowing down. We know we're probably in a recession, even though no one wants to admit it. Okay, we are seeing stagflation, or the signs of stagflation. We need to provide our citizens some relief, and if that means that we have to maybe postpone or think of other projects, doing something with other projects. And I know that there's some things that are urgent that we'll still be addressing, but that $1.5 million in the grand scheme of things, knowing our bonding capacity is pretty significant already. This is bond and interest servicing that debt. I think that we still have some flexibility, even with a $500,000 reduction.
Well, I'll argue. So
Yeah, sure, please,
I,
please.
I feel like
He wants an argument.
well,
No,
I feel like
I saw throw a hand grenade out there. I want
Well,
someone to kick it away.
and your points are valid. I think the position that we're in is the same position that we were in a year
Last
ago,
year.
from the standpoint of the projects that we're looking at doing at both major interstate intersections that hit Gardner. That having the capability to be able to action those, because we know the costs are going to come in higher than probably we were already expecting. I mean, it's always the same, right?
They're already going.
And so if I look at the difference between the two, it feels like to me, the $10 million level is kind of like the base, and we held everything last year at the same rate. We were flat last year as well.
We were flat, but there was a reason why we were flat.
We were flat because because also but we're also not growing as much as we were last year.
There were two reasons why we were flat. First one was the growth, and the second one was the fact that we had a massive increase in our health insurance premiums and our costs for employees. Those are the two drivers that made it flat, okay? We've done some work, thanks to staff and to our outside consultants, to get that under control, okay? But growth is slowing down. Even the valuations are beginning to level off. We're talking about 8%, last year it was 10% or more, okay? So we're starting to see that happen, and when the housing market slows down, we see a lessening of our sales tax revenues, and that's what really concerns me. The sales tax revenues are the canary in the coal mine. When you start to see those going down, you definitely are seeing a slowdown in economic activity. I don't think that our citizens are going to, I know we're talking about a pittance, right? Okay, well, it's not just a pittance, because the county assesses tax, the county funds assess tax, the school districts assess tax. Any place that we can go to try to give some relief, we should take it. And a half mil versus a quarter mil, I think the half mil is erring on the side of caution and making sure that our citizens have more wiggle room.
Steve, as I look, even though it's on the agenda for tonight, we've got a lot of spending coming at us.
I know.
And much of that spending is being dictated to us by other entities that have the power to dictate their will on us. I just see this, what you're talking about here is very prudent, because as people, as homeowners, businesses, as everything else gets their tax increases on their properties, it gets to the point where it becomes unaffordable. And I think at this point, at the city level of government, we need to be a little more attuned and watch for areas where we can save a few dollars. And we're going to have to tighten the belt, because families are doing just exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
We can't make money, we don't have a printing press in the basement, but we're going to have to live within our means.
And part of it's going to be probably, I know you hate hearing this, Jim, but we may have to defer some capital projects that they're not super critical, but obviously the wastewater upgrades have to go forward, and other projects such as that. But we may have to look at possibly making some deferrals of capital projects, at least until we know how the economy is looking after the end of this year, because I think that there's going to be a definite move one way or the other after the end of this year.
Well, and then if property values fall, then we really have a problem.
That's the other piece. But again, that might actually support Mark's argument. If property values fall, then we have to think about, maintaining or even raising mill. But I don't think they're going to fall here, at least not in the short term. So in that scenario, I think we're in a good spot to provide that relief.
Am I correct in, we don't have to make the quarter mil, half mil decision tonight, we just have to let you know
It's a target.
we're going to do something so we can set a hearing?
That'll be at the next meeting. I'll bring back a resolution. Where will you be setting that hearing? I was basically asking for a placeholder for that resolution. You can change it at that meeting too.
We basically just need to know tonight, one, talk some of this out, but two, are we planning to exceed R&R? That's the main thing Matt needs to know
I
tonight.
think R&R is going to be exceeded regardless. I don't think we can go.
I don't
but they've got a gigantic
Their,
tax
their,
base. So.
yeah, their tax
still
base is
100 million.
enormous, but
Yep.
if you look at all the other cities in the area, you look at, you even go down to Wichita and look at some of the, it's interesting to see what their mill levies are. We're by far the lowest.
Yep. We've tasked staff here with a very tough job, and that is how can we provide, understand our average household income in Gardner is still lower than most jurisdictions here in Johnson County. So that puts us in a tough spot. We're primarily residential even today, though we have a lot of commercial moving in here. And we'll have a lot more in the next couple of years, but until that commercial tax base is to the point where we're able to get that valuation per mill high enough so that we can significantly utilize that commercial tax revenue to supplement our residential, it's still going to be a struggle because I think we're about, is it 78% now, Matt? It used to be 85%, now it's about 78% residential.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it's not very much higher, lower, but it's lower, but we still have a lot of work to do.
But also keep in mind too, I mean, we're at the precipice of the amount of growth. I mean, with the Panasonic plant coming online,
Yes.
all the work going on around New Century. I just want to caution us about going to half and then having to raise it again. Because
Well,
it's my report.
here's my thinking here on that. If we have to move forward and make an adjustment to the mill, we go to the taxpayers and we make our case.
Well, we're going
We
to
don't,
do that anyway.
we don't hold it just so we can use it later. I'm kind of using your language here, Mark. But if we need to have a bonded project and it needs to be financed, and the citizens of this community feel like it's worthwhile to fund, then we take it and put it on a ballot issue and we have them vote on it. And if they want to increase their mills to be able to fund specific capital projects, I would rather go that way than to hold on to extra mills just because.
Steve, again, I'm new this year. This is my first year through this process, so if I misspeak, please correct me. Sounds to me like one of the other things we can be doing very aggressively is trying to find and develop more retail in the area. Because I think we're way behind across the interstate. We got empty buildings. And if we can, through our chamber and some other partners, start bringing more retail to town that does charge sales tax, that would be additional sources of that and give us some relief, if I understand this correctly.
I'll finish up my comments. Yeah, I think we got to be above the
R&R.
Yeah, I agree, above the R&R.
Okay, so we're above R&R. We have consensus on that.
Yep.
Whether or not, where we target it from there, we can discuss further. So my comments, listening to all of this, is everybody understands how business works, how your household works, right? And what's unique about government is that it's a glorified Ponzi scheme, okay? Straight up, because we can't make a product to sell to change our revenue, okay? And there's no way next year will be cheaper than this year because of inflation. The way this country is set up, it is a Ponzi scheme that you will have to pay. You have to bring something else in to pay for what you're going to fix, that road from 20 years ago you built, or that new one you're building to get across the highway to do something else. So for all intents and purposes, you have to grow. And the best you can do is essentially try to grow at the rate that everything else is going, okay? So my question, Matt, is we talked about bond and interest for the most part, but the budget is, we're looking at 2025, and our fund balance is a good number. It's at 34%, right? I'm a fan of getting close to 30. But at the end of 2029, we're at 25. What would be the projection that you'd have to be at 30% at 2029? Or have we calculated it?
I'd have to go back and calculate it and bring it back.
Okay. I'm curious because all of, the points about keeping not keeping mills are 100% valid, right? There's no reason to hold on to money so that we can hopefully not spend it, right? And at the same time, you have the concern of, well, you don't want to raise it, well, ever, but high at some point. So it would be interesting to see what that looks like. Are we doing a huge stair step when we get to the end, or are we nickel and diming this as we go? Because eventually, you know, now if we do something to improve our bond and interest fiscal capacity, right, we keep it. That's great so that you can use your bonds. But if it's a recession, we're going to have issues with bond rates. And then if our target fund balance drops too low, now our ratings from the bond arbiters are going to drop us, and now our rates are even higher. So yes, we have capacity, but now we don't want to use it, right? So I would be curious in that number. I don't have to have it tonight, obviously, but to see where we're at and what it would take to do that. And is it a huge number? Can we support a reduction this year and then what that chart looks like going forward? Or is that forcing a stair step at some point in the next 5 years?
Well, municipal bond rates, by their very nature right now, are already stifling, to a certain extent, our bonding capacity. I know we have our bond counsel here, Tyler Ellsworth, who might be able to speak more on the market conditions right now, but I mean, that's already beginning to have an effect on our ability to be able to bond out projects, right?
Yes, for most of our assumptions, like if we were to go out and issue debt right now, we're using somewhere between 4.3 to 4.5%, much higher than what we were a couple years ago.
Right. So we're already seeing that.
So when we talk about capital improvement projects, I want everybody to think about roads versus a project for a community center, a tent over the pool. Because the thing that's gonna drive what we need the geo bonds for is road improvements. We're at a point now where we do not have an arterial road maintenance program. And we're trying to fund that to a certain degree this year in this next budget. But if we have to do a break in access, if we have to make significant improvements to 175th Street in Clare, excise tax is not designed to cover that. And we're trying to find alternative methods of getting developers involved in that. But the 10 million, think of that in the context of what's it gonna take to make those improvements. And honestly, it's not staff's, I mean, we follow council policy. If the council wants us to slow down on development and all the things that we have that are in the pipeline, even if it's just initial conversations, we will do that. But if we're going like we are now, that $10 million is gonna come way short of what we need to make the arterial, bridge, road improvements that are within the next couple years. So don't think of capital projects as the CIP or things that we want that we don't need. We're talking about in the context of what we need and what we don't have funds allocated for right now.
Are you talking about the granted portion or the city's portion of the grants funds that we're pursuing? I'm assuming that's the latter.
Well, that's part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
matching funds for like 167th Street and
Sure.
stuff. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about what we're doing at, we have 3 bridges
Yep.
in Gardner, and all 3 of them are in design.
Mhm.
So, and all those road improvements to, 175th Street is gonna have to be changed, like Clare is gonna have to be changed, like, I mean, all those things are going to test our capacity to issue geo bond debt to cover those things. And our debt capacity right now is at 10. If we go to 9, we're lowering what we have right now, what we agreed to last year to maintain.
Did the 10 work for us this year, or was it a struggle?
Well, we didn't issue the debt because we still have, we're waiting on KDOT to do, a lot of it was tied to the project at,
Gardner Road.
yeah, Gardner
What
Road
the-
and then the East McDonald's.
Right.
But did we say
Now
no
we're-
to
now
any
we're looking
projects?
at- Now we have Clear Crossing, it's on the other side of Clear, we have development continuing in south on Clear, we have other things that we're gonna talk about later on that are, potential needs in that regard. but there's issues with that as well. So we are working through that to figure out what's the best time to recommend to council to take that to the citizens. Because there's some strategy involved in that as well, you know, as far as what it's gonna cover or what we're going to do with it. If we come back with the same thing, it may not be, you know, generate the excitement and enthusiasm that, you know, otherwise if we add something to it. You know, those are things that the council, everybody needs to decide.
But when we think about roads, we have to, you know, worst case scenario that doesn't get approved by our citizens.
Well, and it's similar to when the sales tax was, there was no maintenance, there was no
Right.
budgeted maintenance amount for collectors and local streets. It's like that now for arterials. The excise tax is supposed to do that, but it doesn't come close to, it's like 500,000 short on an annual basis of covering the arterials. So,
Okay. Tough decisions.
Any other comments, questions before you mull over that for a month?
Can we model?
Calculate on it.
Can we model? I know that we have a slight idea of what the total cost of those projects are, a general ballpark idea of the total cost of the projects for the 3 interchanges, so South Gardner Road, which I think we've already provided our funding, our portion of the funding for that. KDOT's picking up the cost overruns. The 175th Street modifications, obviously, there's 2 pieces to that. One's the off-ramp issue, and then the other piece is actually redesigning the interchange. All right, and then the third one obviously is Moonlight, but that's being kind of pushed on us by KDOT because of the condition of the bridge, correct?
well, they'll actually do the bridge.
Yeah.
And it's in the county. The
Yep.
issues are gonna be whether we want it to be an interchange.
Yep.
Which is expensive, and 183rd Street is gonna need to be finished. It's
Yes.
still a gravel road. And as development comes on, and it comes on piecemeal, I mean, there's ways that we can, you know, do benefit districts and things like that, but we have to get the developers in there. And it's the same thing with sewer, as we grow, whether it's north to south or south to north, on the east side, we're going to have to put ourselves out there and issue debt that we could recover at a later time, but we're gonna have to do that to facilitate that growth.
And that doesn't even include New Trails Parkway, which is kind of the cornerstone of all commercial development supposed to happen on the east side of I-35.
Right.
I kind of like that, the idea of building a model of what we need to do. Jim, you just mentioned, you know, the interchange that could potentially go into Moonlight and some other things. Maybe some ideas and projects that could make retention or renewal of the sales tax a little more palatable. If people realize that they're gonna vote for sales tax retention, but they get an interchange out of it on Moonlight, they're probably gonna be more likely to swallow that than something that doesn't have something that directly benefits them.
I don't think that would fund the interchange in Moonlight.
No,
It
I'm
would-
saying that, using that as an example.
Yeah, but it wouldn't fund the interchange. The special sales tax for infrastructure, for roads, is actually just for our arterials and for our collectors
I
and local
understand.
streets. Yeah.
What would it take to do that?
Yeah,
A bond issue.
I would be real careful that we don't have the carrot. We're too busy trying to figure out if we can clean up our mess behind.
Exactly.
Right, so
Exactly.
even if there is a carrot, we've got to fix what's behind us
Yeah.
before we can ever offer
Yeah.
a carrot. And yeah, it's going to be difficult.
I mean, in order to get an interchange, you'd probably have to get a bond issue. I'm just telling you, make the case to the electorate, let them vote on it, but if they want that interchange, then that would be the way to go. But that means increasing their property taxes.
So bottom line, Matt, definitely gonna exceed revenue neutral rate.
Yes.
Is that it? Thank you, Matt.
We've got some.
Thank you.
Slightly more than 3 minutes. Public hearing number 1, only one. City clerk? Are you doing it?
You open it.
I just opened.
You open it,
Yeah.
okay, make a motion.
Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Deaton, second, Shoot, to to open a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments to a request for a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale and consumption of cereal malt beverages for consumption within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Santa Fe Disco Rodeo event on June 30th, 2024 at the Johnson County Fairgrounds, 136 East Washington Street. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Meeting is now open.
Hit the gavel.
Good call. Does anyone from the public want to speak on this motion, this issue? Entertain a motion to close said.
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNear, second Deaton, that we close the public meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion has passed, the meeting is closed. All right, public comments. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing that we just had. If you wish to come forward, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. There's a time clock on your left. Come forward and state your name and address for the record. The podium is now open.
I don't know if maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Brady. My address is 235 West Colleen Drive. My wife and I have been Gardner residents for 42 years. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to our city council for being elected officials. It's not an easy job, and I appreciate you putting us in a place of success, and I hope we continue to grow. I understand we just recently were named one of the fastest growing cities for populations over 25,000, so a great feather in our cap. Hey, I love Gardner. I just want to say that up front. My wife and I raised our 3 children here, and 2 of our 5 grandchildren will be raised in this city, and they will enjoy the amenities and the services that we have experienced for the last 4 decades. To support our city, I want you to know what I've been involved with. As Jason knows, I've been a youth coach for my kids. I helped spearhead the quarter-cent sales tax that helped build the aquatic center. I served on various task forces for the city. And most recently, I was on the City Planning Commission. In fact, Steve and I did that together for a few years. But currently, I'm the executive director of the Gardner Edgerton Schools Foundation. And prior to that, I was a staff member in USD 231. I was at Nike for 15 years as a teacher, and a coach, and assistant principal. And then I became the principal at Wheat Ridge, Pioneer Ridge, and my last gig was a high school principal. The Gardner Edgerton Schools Foundation is a nonprofit organization that supports students and staff of USD 231. I am not an employee of the school district, all right? But I do work hand in hand with the school officials to provide support in a wide variety of ways to our students and staff. As a 501c3, all of our funding comes from businesses, organizations, individuals, retirees, alumni, and sometimes grants. Last week, I sent each of you an email with an attachment asking you to help offset expenses for a new initiative that we have, and we are establishing a new Alumni Hall of Fame. We're set to bring in our inaugural class on September 7th. You'll be invited to that event, and our 3 inductees are absolutely amazing. 2 of the 3 inductees are Gardner High School graduates and still reside in our community. They include Shirley Bruce Brown, class of 1965, Dr. Roy Jensen, class of 1976. As you probably know, Dr. Jensen was recently recognized as Johnson Countyan of the Year. And then, of course, Shirley, she's been a pillar of our community for quite some time and is really the definition of what it means to be a servant leader. So tonight, I'm requesting that you approve through your processes $1,000 to go to the foundation so we can honor alumni who have placed our city and school district in a positive light for many, many years. The city of Gardner will be formally recognized at the induction ceremony. And I'm not asking you to do this for me or the foundation. I'm asking you to do this for Roy and Shirley. And then our 3rd inductee is actually Edgerton Rural High School graduate, Mr. Ray Braun. So you have an opportunity to send a powerful message to these people, but our entire community, that you value their positive contributions that they have made to the profession and or community. The city of Edgerton has already committed funds to this initiative. They are supporting, as I said, Ray Braun. So I'm asking you to say, hey, maybe it's your turn, all right? So I'm encouraging you to embrace the momentum and the excitement that we've got going. Continue the rich history and tradition of Blazer Nation by making the decision to honor our very best. With that, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim.
Seeing no one else, let's move on to consent agenda. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from consent? Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Casey, second McNear, that we accept, sorry, Deaton, that we accept the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
It is passed. Planning and zoning consent agenda. Do we have any item that the councilman would like to remove? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot, that we accept the planning and zoning consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Committee recommendation number 1, considering approving a conditional use permit.
I'll try to make up some time for Matt's presentation tonight, so we'll see where we go with that. Good evening, members of the council. As noted, this is for a conditional use permit for the property at 312 West Main. It's approximately 0.4 acres, zone C1. You'll recall this is a property that used to be an old restaurant site. It's surrounded by residential and residential zoning. We had a conditional use permit here once before in recent history regarding the hibachi truck that was there, food truck that was there. The difference there was that was a year-round establishment, plus it was tied to public utilities at that point, full-service utilities. In this case, Nice Ice Baby is proposing a seasonal use through the summer months. This is actually a vendor that was located across the street by Transport Brewery. That owner at that time sold the operation to the current owner that's has this application in, and they have found this site and therefore went to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. At the public hearing, one nearby resident spoke at that hearing in support of the item. It was indicated that this owner or this vendor did go around to the citizens and talk to them in advance on this. So as a result of the evaluation by staff as well as the Planning Commission hearing that was held on May 22nd of 2024, the Planning Commission is recommending approval of the proposed conditional use permit application with the 13 conditions that are listed in your packet. With that, I am available for questions.
Any public comment?
Hello. I'm Justin Smith, 18525 Juniper Street. I am the new owner of Nice Ice Baby. There is one thing that was a little bit confusing, or that got confused in my communication with the planner I was working with, and that was just in regards to the length of the season that we had requested. We'd requested April through the end of September, and he had originally put it in as May through the end of August. So that is one modification I would like to request. With that being said, I don't have anything else unless someone else has questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, questions?
Excited to have him back.
I know with the hibachi, we were concerned about like the parking and the flow of traffic in that area, and that was one of the big reasons why they chose not to continue. Do we feel like that is a better situation?
Yeah.
for this?
We feel that because of this not being a full kind of service food vendor, that your peak times and when you're going to see this happening are going to be shorter and less frequent. So we don't see the problem the same. We do have some issues with some of the markings that were placed for parking and circulation there. We've been talking to the property owner and the vendor about that to help clarify some things and hopefully help with the circulation in that area. So we're hoping I will say that, but we will also be evaluating it. One of the conditions that's talked to in here has to do with the traffic scenario. If we are receiving complaints or we do see interruptions, again, it's a state roadway as well. So KDOT will be interested if there's functioning problems there. So if we have that problem, we'll bring the vendor back in and we may have to reevaluate some
And
things
this
at that
is a
point.
shorter time period, and they're not putting as much money into it, so if it doesn't work out this season, we can definitely address that for next season.
Correct. So the idea behind the conditional use permit by approving it for multiple years is so that we don't have to come back every year with a new conditional use permit, charge the applicant every time for that conditional use permit. But on the exchange for that is the limitation on the seasonal period that it's operating.
And if we did want to approve to go through September, does that have to go back to planning commission, or are we able to?
No, you have the ability to make the adjustment. You would make the adjustment to condition number 4, where it's indicated May through August, so you could adjust that. You would be, technically, you would not be going along with the planning commission recommendation, so you would need that 2/3 majority to do that, which is still 4 out of 6 of you.
I mean, I personally don't have an issue with extending it
Or,
to.
sorry,
September.
4.
It stays hot for a long time.
Dave, I had 2 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
First one is what set of utilities are going to be connected to and how are they going to be connected?
I'd have to double check on that. I believe
We need electric and
electricity,
water.
yeah. It was electricity and water, so they are not connecting to the sanitary sewer, which was part of the large issue with the grease interceptor and things that would have been required.
And the second question is this subject to an administrative review for the first year?
No. So what'll happen is at the end of the season, we will do an evaluation essentially, but it's not a formal administrative review like you've seen in certain other conditional use
Reading the
permits.
packet, I was very happy to see that the new owner had circulated through the neighborhood, checked with neighbors, and kind of tried to ask before he does.
Mhm.
So that was welcome to see.
Looking at this real quick here, I'm looking at condition number 2. It says the applicant shall be required to submit a temporary use permit
Correct.
application to be reviewed and approved January 1st of each calendar year. I'm assuming that's a seasonal review, and that it would be
Yes.
basically just a status check as to how last year's permit went.
Correct.
It
So
would-
the temporary use permit is associated with the fact that it's a food vendor.
Yep.
So we do have that requirement for temporary use permits. So that's where this would happen. And essentially, it kind of replaces the administrative review because again, as they come in with that application, we'll be evaluating the previous season. We'll be looking at those things. And if changes need to be made, if there's an operational change, that gives the applicant plenty of time that if he has to modify the conditional use permit because they're making changes to the operation, it doesn't impact that next season. He's coming in several months ahead of the season for planning
Sure.
commission consideration and potentially consideration by you as well.
Absolutely. And then the other piece I kind of mirror Casey's concerns about the markings out there for parking because they do seem to be a little bit confusing. Flows a little bit weird. I hope we can tighten that up
Yeah.
as we go through this process.
My understanding, at least from the planners, that he's working with the property owner as well as the vendor to try to get that corrected.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Dave, was there any concern about the hours being 1 to 8? I'm just thinking, if you want to get a snow cone at 9:30 when it's hotter than heck in the middle of July, that doesn't seem like a problem to me.
I believe these are the hours that were provided by the applicant, so I believe that's correct.
They were slightly modified. I did originally request till 9, but I believe there was some concern about lot lighting being open later.
Okay. And you're good with what's in here?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, council?
And I want to just double check, is everybody okay with September?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
March to September is
Okay.
fine.
I don't think it's an issue.
Wait, are we doing March to September
April.
or April to May?
April.
This
Sorry.
says May to August. You want April to September?
Extending the point.
All right, then I would motion to approve this with extending it to April to September.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNear, that we adopt ordinance number 2803 approving conditional use permit 24-305-01 as amended by the planning commission. City clerk?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute.
Yes.
Councilmember McNair.
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
That passes.
Welcome to our community.
Thank you. Appreciate it. New business item number 1. You're already up there, Jim. Thank you.
It's time to get serious.
All right. It's on the second page.
All right, as you recall, in May, we had a discussion about golf carts on city streets, and as promised, we agreed to bring back options for the council. So this is, if you look at the ordinance, we are only addressing section 114.2, which is section G, worksite utility vehicles, golf carts, and micro utility trucks, which are in the same class under the STO and state statute. The decision points for, well, the first decision is, do we want to allow golf carts on city streets? And then if so, the criteria would be 25 miles per hour or less, speed limit, that they are equipped with lights as required by state and local law for motorcycles, have a valid driver's license, and the owner must maintain insurance. The last one is number of occupants limited to the number of seats that are factory installed. So I included the map, and it shows on the map that the 25 miles per hour is in orange, but actually it's everything that is not colored is 25 miles per hour or less. So the ones that are colored in any of the other colors, red, orange, or red, green, purple, those the golf carts would not be allowed on those streets.
Public comment? Does anybody have any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'm Stephen Tancredi. I live down 408 East Shawnee Street in Gardner. And I disagree with having golf carts in the street. I'm sorry. It may sound stupid, but no. There's too many kids. Mom and dad are all out working. And I don't care. You can say all you want about license and stuff. But there's too many kids out here, 10-year-olds. Mom and dad are gone. Cats are gone. The cat's gone. Mice will play. You know, it'd be nothing but suicide jockeys out there. Be a lot of kids getting hurt. We don't need a bunch of dead kids on the street. I'm sorry to say it to you guys that way. That's what I feel.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Council?
What's the enforcement look like? Or, I mean, you know, to his point, if we do have kids out there riding around in their golf cart on the street, is there a fine for the kids? Does it go back to the parents? Is it?
Yeah.
We would call the parents and make the parents come get them if they're not licensed, so under 16. I would have to double check, and I meant to look this up for the 14 to 16 with the permits, but I do not believe that they would be allowed to operate the golf carts. They would have
Without
to
their
adhere
parent.
to the same permit. So they would be ticketed for being an unlicensed driver, depending on their age, and then their parents would have to come get them. They would not be able to leave with the golf cart.
What about the cart?
They would not be able to leave with the golf cart if we were not able to reach a parent and for some reason had to take the child into custody or take them home, then we would have to impound the golf cart.
And then I guess the follow-on question is, what about if they're crossing or going on the streets that they're not allowed?
That's already covered in,
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah.
yeah, which was
Yeah.
welcomed, because that covers a lot. Basically, they can cross the street, even if it's the 30 mile an hour. If they want to cross
Yes.
Center Street, they can.
The problem is that like in my neighborhood on Symphony Farms on Kill Creek, there's kids 9, 10 driving golf carts coming out of the neighborhood, and they're going to the pool or celebration, and there is no cross street, so they're just driving down the road.
Well, that would not be allowed.
It's not allowed now.
My concern is if we make it legal, even with all these modifications, more people will buy them and then more people will misuse it. I'm worried about our greenway trails, and I love our police department. We do an amazing job. We don't have the staff to patrol
pedestrian trails too.
Are-
West Madison, South
Yeah.
Gardner Road, North Gardner Road, East 183rd Street,
Yeah, they're not allowed on any of those.
but
I had a conversation this afternoon at that same point, Casey, and my question was, what about e-bikes? What about e-scooters? All types of other things. And the answer was, well, the regulation for bicycles would be there. So what that's really doing, what I'm hearing there is that's a way to introduce motorized vehicles into trails and a lot of things. And my biggest concern of all is we have kids out there operating these things. And they hit another person's kid. That's going to be a big mess.
you know what this sounds like, guys?
So let me
This
throw
sounds
something out
like,
here.
This sounds like this might not pass.
So I'm not terribly worried about a whole lot of extra people buying golf carts because
No.
you got to store them and it's a pain, to be honest. You got to be able to load them and everything else. But I struggled with all those same concerns everybody's brought up, and the kicker I come back to is they can do everything you just said on a bicycle at 6 years old.
Yeah.
They can cross that road. They can go on that trail.
Except
they can
all three of their friends.
well sit on the front of the handlebars. But I'm just saying it.
We used to fit 3 on a
Yeah,
bicycle.
it's doable.
Put one on the back, have one stand on.
I don't. Yes, you are increasing the speed here potentially, right? 6-year-olds not riding at 25 miles an hour, but I don't think we're really adding a whole lot of extra danger to these people's lives. And I'm firmly in the camp of people should be able to be responsible for their own children, and you should be able to turn yourself into a greasy spot anywhere you want. Now, I'm not saying that about the kids. I'm saying that about adults that are idiots. Okay? So
About kids?
kids should be monitored by their parents, right? But just like seatbelt laws, I'm totally great with the cops cracking down on every single child that's not buckled in properly, because that's on the parents. But if you want to not wear a seatbelt, that's your problem. Okay? If you don't want to wear a helmet on a motorcycle, that's your problem. I don't care. I shouldn't enforce something on you. So as far as this is concerned, I think all the concerns with parents with the kids lies with the parents. And a couple tickets will take care of that pretty quick, I would hope. I feel like we're making a mole out of a mountain, or making this too difficult.
I personally think that there's a lot of, and I know you're saying we're making a mountain out of a molehill, okay? But the molehill isn't a molehill to die on, I guess. So the question is, there's folks, we know that the kids are going to use these things. We know they will. They already
There they
are.
are.
Okay?
So I don't know what would be different than if you legalize it.
Well, maybe a lot more kids using them.
Only if you have more carts available. I mean, I don't think you're going to have an increase of people that are doing this.
I don't know that
Save
we
some
have the
of the
right
fireworks.
community for it. I think we have too many.
It does seem like we're too broken up. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I guess I know we're saying that you can cross streets, but
If we had like golf course communities in this town, like for
Be a whole
example,
di- yeah,
if
be
we
a
had
whole
like a
different
Prairie
thing.
Highlands here in Gardner, and people wanted to use golf carts in that area, like in their neighborhoods or with the golf course, and they want to just take that golf cart that they use for the golf course and put it into their garage, I could see that. I don't see that here. And maybe
Well-
I'm not.
I think what I'm hearing, Steve, is maybe authorizing this right now may not be the right thing. Maybe we need to have a little more time, maybe some more input to really kind of, get your arms around it.
I don't know. We've had a lot of time.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just got. that
I'd be
from-
inclined to say no.
We've been through this a few times now, Steve. I don't know if we want to keep. I personally I don't like adding ordinances to add ordinances. Personally,
I'm not.
is this a problem? Is this a solution looking for a problem? Is my question.
I think so.
Okay, if it's a solution looking for a problem, we don't need it.
I don't know. We've had people ask us to look
Yep.
at this because they want it.
Yep.
How many of you have had somebody jump up and say they don't want it? Or one public comment excluded?
Well, that's one public comment.
I understand that. How many people have
And they're
requested
here.
it?
I mean,
I had one email request it, and
Yeah.
one person
And-
say no, thank you. So
and
it's
I
two
absolutely
citizens.
take somebody who comes to the
Absolutely.
meeting, a little lot.
Oh, no, I absolutely
I
understand.
mean, if you're gonna get up on a Monday night, come out here at 7 o'clock, listen to everything that you
Yep.
have to listen to up front.
And go through all, sit
They
through
can
all
rave it
those
up
dry
and say that part.
presentations.
I mean,
No.
sending an email is easy. And I appreciate the emails, don't get me wrong.
And I appreciate the
I hadn't
staff
even thought about that before the email came
putting
across.
something together for us to
Yeah.
look at, because, you know, I did want to see it. I'm visualizing it. I'm struggling with it.
Yeah.
I feel like our community is too broken up. They're going to be past, you know, I'm worried about the danger of the cars
And here's the other thing.
We're already having traffic issues. Fastest growing city in Kansas.
And if there are more people who want to come out and say, hey, I want this, you've written it out, we can come back to it at another point in
Yeah,
time.
we can consider
I
it
think
again.
I'm hearing it doesn't feel right now.
I don't think so.
I had three other questions. Back when we looked in the packet, insurance required. I believe absolutely, if we were to consider this, I absolutely believe it should be liability insurance at a minimum.
Well, just like with a car.
Yeah, same or higher limits.
Yeah.
City registration, absolutely. You know, we need to understand, you know, make these, you know, if you're gonna use it on the street, you
Again.
need to register.
Again, I
Seems
don't
like
think
an
we're-
unnecessary use tax.
I totally agree. And that's why we shouldn't pass this. I think we should shelve it. And if there's more popular
Well, and-
uprising about this, maybe we can look at it later.
And the last one was
Totally optional.
slow moving vehicle in them. I think that's a good idea.
Oh.
Because when people come up on them, they need to know, especially those kids operating.
Yeah. I think I've made my position clear.
I think I'm clear.
So we can actually go through with a motion, and then, if I hear it correctly, it'll probably get denied. Or we could table this to a period of, in the future that.
Well, we can't
may
really
dictate.
table because table would bring it to the next regular meeting. So I guess we can continue this till,
Yeah, I guess we can continue.
yeah, motion to continue on this item.
So moved. 60
to
days.
win though.
Do I have to have a time certain on continuance?
You either time certain or something measurable until,
I would,
until one of you requests the city administrator to bring
Yeah.
back or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I put a motion on the table that we continue this to the second meeting in August.
I would
Wait,
venture to
there's
say,
a motion on the table.
yeah, there's a motion.
sorry.
I-
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to continue until the second meeting in August. Any further discussion?
I don't particularly think that that is I don't understand the time frame on that, so.
90 days.
It's,
90 days, and it actually gives the public more time to weigh in.
I guess if the point of this is that we can bring it back whenever somebody pushes for it, then why don't we just vote on it, and people will then know that they can bring it back, but we said yay or nay, and if you want it, come call for it.
And the city can save this document and bring it back at any time.
We can be done with this.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I motion to deny this.
Second.
Wait, is that how we would do it?
Yeah, that's fine. You can, no.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second McNear to deny the ordinance. City Clerk, roll call please.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember McNear,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
No.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Weed.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 to deny.
That was
Yep, yes for no.
That's because the motion was.
That's very
it's a
clear.
Negative motion, so. Sorry, guys.
Hey, when you're just playing the part. All right, new business item number 2. Mr. Wolf again? Sure. Consider approving adjustments to the city's contribution strategy for health insurance.
On April 1st, 2024, the City Council held a work session to discuss health insurance. CBIZ, the city's employee benefits consultant and broker, provided a presentation covering the prior plan year, reporting, financials, and 2024 medical marketing results. On April 15th, 2024, the City Council authorized the City Administrator to execute an agreement with Gravy and the city's contributions to the health reimbursement arrangement, health savings account, vision, dental, and life insurance programs. CBIZ and the city worked together to develop the contribution strategy, assuming employees elect a gold quality or qualifying high deductible health plan and enroll in the same amount of dependents that are currently enrolled. During the onset of enrollment, it was brought to our attention that unknown variables may result in employees moving from family to employee plus spouse coverage. The approved contribution for employee plus spouse for anyone under the age of 49 creates a significant and unreasonable financial strain. Employees are also seeing increases in deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. Increasing the city's contribution to health savings accounts will help provide additional assistance. In your packets, there was a matrix that highlighted all the different changes that are being recommended. The financial impact of those, the estimated cost for the employee plus spouse contribution adjustments is just under $4,000. The estimated cost of increase in HSA contributions is $14,000. The total estimated cost for all recommended changes is $17,991. The staff's recommendation that you make the adjustments to the city's contributions.
Thank you, Matt. Any public comment? Seeing none, council?
Will these HSA contributions go into effect this July, like in 2 weeks?
Yes.
And unless there are improvements to the plans in the marketplace, this would be an ongoing expense, correct? Plan to
Yes.
have this throughout.
And actually, we'd have to review this every year to see what the market looks like.
And just so I'm clear, and I think you mentioned this, but the table that's in the notes, that's the employee contribution, not, or is that our contribution, the city?
That's the employer contribution.
Okay, the employer.
Yeah.
We're talking about $17,000 hit for this fiscal year.
Yes.
And then next year, we're probably looking at something similar to that, maybe even a little more.
Usually I think they're estimating 8% increase in most plans.
So about 20,000.
That's way over 3% line.
Well, it's the market.
Isn't it?
It's the market. We can't really do much about that.
Anything else? Okay. Anything? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, Motion Deaton, second Shoot, that we approve adjustments to the city's contribution to the health insurance program. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. New business, item number 3, consider awarding the Progressive Design Build Phase 2 construction services contract to the Crossland Heavy Contractors.
Good evening, council members. Jeff Lemire here, Utilities Manager, again, presenting on the wastewater treatment plant expansion project. As we have completed the Phase 1, we are now moving into the Phase 2 construction services contract to Crossland Heavy Contractors, Inc. I also have Scott Milholland here, our wastewater treatment plant superintendent, one of our plant operators, and then our design build team of Crossland and Black and Veatch. So I know you guys have seen this before, but just a background for everyone again. In 2016, master plan was started and it was completed in 2017. Then in 2020, we investigated a south wastewater treatment plant, and KDHE denied that idea, so we moved forward with selecting Crossland in 2023 as part of a design build team with Black & Veatch. And now we're here to present the guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the project and move into construction phase 2 of this project. Again, the overview of the project, the existing plant you can see on the right, and we have the new treatment train on the left, and then all the other parts of the plant that will see some sort of improvement. As we move towards construction phasing, we still are doing value engineering and continuing that effort on multiple different items, such as optimizing our treatment system layout and dimensions, continue conversations with manufacturers, vendors, and subcontractors to optimize our budget. We are looking at the makeup air unit in the solids handling building and how we can handle that and cut costs there. Gas versus electric service to that system in that building. Looking through those alternatives as well. Then looking at our plan for rehabbing the existing plant and how that scheduling will occur. And then, of course, the procurement process and timing of that, how that's going to work. You know, we need to procure things as fast as possible so we stop that increase in pricing that we continue to see every time we run numbers on this project. Going into that, we continue to see escalation of electrical components. Large numbers on that. Stainless steel piping and other features that we have designed into the plant, those costs continue to escalate as well. And then finalizing our process design through KDHE is kind of where some of our contingency is as well. And in the last council presentation, I think that was the main question was, how are we going to cover the escalation of costs? And so we did look at the contingency fund, and the contingency makes up majority of what the price increase is since the last time we were in front of you guys. But the reason that is because we continue to see items increase in costs of up to $1 million per item. So that's kind of where we are. Then we also have to finish the final design modifications and do all that and get that approved through KDHE. We have received our permit for the next 5 years for the plant from KDHE, so we're good there and we're moving forward in the right direction. And then Matt's gonna talk a little bit about financing.
So throughout this project, we've continued to look at different financing options. And if you recall back at the first meeting in May, Council authorized both the use of a general obligation bonds and also the submittal of a KDHE state revolving fund loan application. We did end up submitting the loan application last month, and after talking with KDHE, the project will be evaluated for inclusion in the state's 2025 fiscal year intended use plan. Their fiscal year starts in July. The full application review process could take up to 3 months. After the May 6th meeting, we talked to the design build team and asked them to continue to evaluate the cost of the project using both approaches. The cost of following the KDHE requirements is considerably higher than we initially anticipated. The cost of some of the components would increase up to 37%. The overall impact was estimated to be around $6 to $7 million. This increase in project costs negated any potential savings we anticipated from the lower interest rate associated with the loan. Another concern with the KDHE loan approach is the timing on the project. The long review and approval process for the loan could delay ordering of components and the start of the project. This project is already on a very tight timeline to be operational by spring of 2026. Taking all these things into account, I'm recommending that we proceed with using general obligation bonds for this project.
Thank you, Matt. Jeff? Any public comments? Council?
Everybody's got bright and cheery news here.
Nothing good to say about that.
Obviously, I mean, when you get the state government involved in anything, it makes it 10 times worse. So obviously that cuts into our bonding capacity, then, doesn't it? And
Way to sneak that in.
yeah, well,
This is actually to be completely funded by the wastewater
it
utility.
is, okay, so I'm sorry. It's not G,
Enterprise.
this is not G. You said general obligation bonds, so I was thinking that would be,
Yeah, but it'll be covered
but
by
it won't
the
be general
enterprise
fund, it will be general obligation funds that are funded by the wastewater.
That means, I mean, we have the ability to back it with taxes if we want to, but the intention is to use only wastewater revenues.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other comments? Questions?
I guess one question I have is, it seems that KDHE has dictated to us all the way along, and what other little surprises would we have along the way before we get this really kind of underway and running?
Welcome to council.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's little
We wrestled with them.
mines everywhere.
We wrestled with them for 4 years on a potential solution on the east side of I-35. So,
Gee, I missed all the fun.
oh, no, you haven't.
Anything else? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second shoot, that we authorize the city administrator to execute the Progressive Design Build Phase 2 construction services contract to Crossland Heavy Contractors, Inc. for the Kill Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility Expansion, CIP project number WW8012, in the amount of $39,450,000. All in favor?
Aye.
That was encouraging.
Yeah, spent $39 million.
Put her on credit.
That was fun. Okay, new business item number 4, consider a request for waiver of distance limitation temporary permit for the sale of cereal malt beverages. City clerk.
So this is a request related to our public hearing that we had earlier. It's a request for a waiver of the distance and temporary permit to allow for the sale and consumption of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a church, school, or library at the Santa Fe Disco, I think it's live and rodeo at the Johnson County Fairground on June 30th, 2024, from 3:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. I know they've hired a private security company as well as they've contacted our police department about providing additional security. So once the council has approved the waiver of the distance and the temporary permit, we can sign off on their form because they still have to get the application to the Alcoholic Beverage Control for approval of the state temporary permit. They are not a licensed applicant right now. So
Okay.
we'll just do a temporary permit for that day only. Once the state approves it, then we would issue our temporary permit.
Understood. There's no public comment because we had a public hearing. Council?
Did we have any issues over this past weekend with the rodeo that was at the?
We had one disturbance, but
I left peacefully.
Hopefully not in your golf cart.
I make a motion to approve the request for waiver of distance limitation.
Motion shoot, second McNear, that we approve a request for a waiver of the distance limitation and a general retailer special event temporary permit to allow for the sale and consumption of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Santa Fe Disco and Rodeo to be held June 30th, 2024 at the Johnson County Fairgrounds, 136 East Washington Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Council updates. Let's start with you, Gons.
You're the man on the side.
No, I have nothing tonight.
Fine, be that way.
Except for $39 million.
Jason?
Nothing tonight.
All right. Dave?
We have Planning Commission next Monday evening, 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. We do have several items on that. You'll get a link to that packet as part of your weekly memo.
Thank you. Kellen?
Nothing further tonight.
Okay. Chief?
We have the Teen Police Academy happening right now. We have, I think, 9 kids from the Gardner area at the police department all this week. And I met with them today, and they were all eager to learn. So I think it's going really well. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. City Clerk, anything else?
Nothing else.
Finance Director Matt?
Just want to thank my staff for all their hard work on the audit, putting together the annual report. So thank you to Nancy, Jackie, and Stephanie for all the work on that.
Yep. Thank you. City Attorney?
Nothing for me.
City Administrator?
So we're still doing debriefs on the health insurance enrollment. We went through that over the last couple of weeks. It did not go as we anticipated. We were told through this process over months that there would be multiple companies, up to 50 to choose from, and that you could reduce the number of companies through filters. And the end result really was we had one company to choose from for a gold plan. So what that meant was if that company that had a limited doctor and hospital network, if your doctor or hospital was not in there, then you had to go to a silver or bronze plan. And when you do that, the premium goes down, but the deductible goes up and the maximum out of pocket goes up, and it goes way up. So we had people that had maximum out of pocket at $19,200 versus the $3,200 for the gold plan. So it did not go well in that regard. I would say probably 90% of the people that are enrolled are in one company. So we are, and we're again, we're doing a debrief with our consultant, and we have to redo this in another 5-6 months. So hopefully there'll be additional alternatives to choose from. So I put in 2 filters. I put in high deductible, gold plan, one company.
Yep.
That was it. So, you know, if we were told through, as we worked through this process, you know, you put in your doctors, you put in medications, you do all this, and it'll filter the companies down from 50, and that didn't happen. So, now you could go off the Gravy platform and go directly to healthcare.gov. And even though it is not pre-tax, there was the potential that you could still get your doctors and do all that stuff. I did that just as an experiment, put in my doctor, put in the medications I take for diabetes, got 0 choices. So it did not go, and one of the examples, and you know, anytime you do something new, there's gonna be things that come up you didn't think of. Well, Children's Mercy is not on the network. So there were a number of employees that had children that would go to Children's Mercy on a regular basis for treatment, was not in the gold plan. So, yeah, there's some people that are not happy. I mean, it's not the majority, but I mean, we're gonna be faced with, you know, the challenge is gonna be not just retention, but recruitment. When you bring somebody in and, you know, they have to change doctors with people, hey, you don't have the hospital network, St. Luke's, Children's Mercy wasn't on there.
Yep.
So we're working through that as we evaluate how the process went. The process of signing up actually wasn't that bad, other than we were replacing carpet through City Hall at the exact same time. Staff did a great job of relocating and working around that nuisance, and Pete did a fantastic job working with everybody. They were already on the other side of the building, so, and I think the carpet looks great throughout the building.
Need to be replaced.
And then the other thing is just direction on Tim Brady's request for the Gardner School Foundation, $1,000. I need some direction.
So, I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like we got sold a bill of goods when it comes to Gravy. Them standing up here telling us, hey, you'll have, put in all your filters and you can choose whatever, made it sound like there was 40 options. So, is this a Gravy issue? I mean, obviously the market is the market, but is this a Gravy issue, CBiz, that, you know, push Gravy? Do we have a problem with our, you know, third party helping us out here?
So when we found out some of these limitations, and we got on a conference call with Maggie from CBiz and with Gravy, Maggie was the aggressor and saying, hey, this is unacceptable, we weren't told this. So I think a lot of it was that it wasn't made clear enough that, you know, just like when the ACA was, you know, you can keep your doctor if you like them.
Yep.
That didn't happen.
Somewhat.
So you could go on the gold plan, you know, pretty much everybody could have gone if they didn't want, if they wanted to change doctors, if their medications, if they were willing to take alternate medications in the hospitals. You know, a lot of people, we had specific cases like one person has a new baby, she's got, you know, her OB wasn't on there, her pediatrician wasn't on there. So those things are big deals to young families, and a lot of them took silver or bronze plans and just gambled that the additional out-of-pocket would not come to bear on them, which is a huge gamble.
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
big
that
gamble.
19,000 out of pocket is basically not having insurance unless something catastrophic happens. So hopefully, as we work through this, and we go through our debrief meetings, we're able to better communicate what's available in 6 months. But again, what if, you know, this one company is not available in 6 months because the whole market could change. They could say, yeah, this isn't working for us. We're gonna get out of this. And going to silver or bronze, what that typically means is, you know, you go to silver, higher out of pocket, higher deductible, lower premium, which is fine, but then you're exposing yourself, you know, insurance is supposed to protect you from those unforeseen things. You're basically working in reverse. You know what your premium's gonna be up front, but you have no coverage
Right.
for something up to $19,000.
So sorry about that. My concern here is that, and this is something that I kind of touched on when we had that discussion with Gravy a couple of months ago, is that the market is very fluid right now. There's a lot of companies entering the marketplace and a lot of companies leaving the marketplace. Unfortunately, the last several months, it's been mostly companies leaving the marketplace. United Healthcare, for example, they had an individual insurance arm that was active in Kansas. They left the marketplace. Humana left the marketplace 2 years ago. There's, I believe that Ambetter, I think, is the one plan that's available. That's a silver bronze plan. That's an individual plan. But again, those are all regulated by the federal government. And so what you see on healthcare.gov is pretty much what you're going to see on the Gravy, you know, because it's
Better's
in,
the one that the gold plan.
Exactly. And Ambetter is the primary carrier in the Kansas market right now. It's probably close to the only plan. There's a Blue Cross PPO as well, but that's very, very high premiums. And so if you want to have any kind of flexibility or any kind of cost savings, you're on Ambetter, and that's pretty much it.
That's what everybody's on.
Yeah, and so that.
So now, according to the consultant, it's the insurance company that decides whether to offer pre-tax versus post-tax.
Exactly.
So it's not Gravy saying, yeah, we're only gonna accept these because they only did pre-tax.
Yeah.
It's the companies that dictate how that works. So I mean, we could, you know, come 6 months from now, we could have fewer choices than we got this time.
No, we don't have very many now. I did a quick search on healthcare.gov just because, and yeah, I put in the two filters, guys, HSA and my doctor. 3 plans came back, 3, and they were all Ambetter plans.
They're all what?
Ambetter plans, one company.
So, a few of the complaints I received, we thought we had more time to sign up. When we were originally sold, it was sign up by June 30th. But a lot of the plans you had to sign up for by June 13th, which gave families less than 2 weeks to kind of do the math and make those decisions. And these were such shocking numbers. When we go to do this again in January, I know we don't really
November.
get to dictate the time frame, but is there any way we can start it earlier to give families a little bit more time?
Open enrollment period for individual coverage that's set by the federal government, and it's October 31st through December 10th. So you've got a longer
That's
period.
one of the things we absolutely are.
Jim, one of the things I was gonna say is welcome to the world of what I've lived in the last 20 years of being self-employed. And not having an employer plan to fall back on. It's kind of rough. And also, we're starting to experience the world of PPO, HMOs, you know, and HSAs. You know, I mean, we're getting into the world of very specialized insurance and you know, basically a health maintenance plan instead of health care plans. And the health industry is starting to change radically into more of a managed care.
Well, no, but the thing is, managed care has been the standard for the last 30, 40 years. The issue is really more around because of the ACA that was passed in 2010.
Which is out of our control.
I know that, but what has happened is that there's been a massive consolidation in the individual market. There used to be much more flexibility, much more plans, many more insurance companies that were in that space. There are very few, and there are fewer every year, and that's the problem you're going to run into.
And insurance across the board, whether it's health insurance, property
Yeah.
insurance, car insurance, you know, companies are getting out of the business left and right because of the costs involved. They can't charge the premiums.
Well, it's because they've become pool providers, and pool providers typically have very low margins. And if they have an option to get out, they're getting out because it's easier to underwrite plans that have they can spread that risk out over a ton of people instead of individual markets. They'll go there all day long, and that's why they like to have those employer plans that are massive pools where you can spread that risk.
It flattens the risk out tremendously.
And you don't have that with individual plans. That's one of the problems you run into.
We have a pretty big risk here.
So just to sum that up, I
It's
don't
a-
want to
it's a
kick
mess.
gravy to the curb today, but as you're evaluating everything, I would seriously look at it because if, not kicking them to the curb, but what benefit they're bringing to us. And if there's others out there, I know we were kind of, our back was against the wall trying to get health insurance at all. But if everybody's going to end up doing their own research anyway and picking their own plan that's off their network, or not network, but their plan, then, you know, what are they bringing to the table? So just something.
The primary benefit is administrative payments.
Okay.
And then I need direction on Mr. Brady.
I
Yes.
was going to ask about that. Where do we go with that? How do we do that?
I don't think it's a big issue to $1,000, but obviously you've got it.
I'll take everybody's inputs.
All right. Well, I don't have a problem with it.
I'd like to see the excellence in our educational system, people that have been outstanding citizens, and be able to be recognized for $1,000. I mean, we just spent $39 million tonight, so it's another 1,000.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we fund
No,
1,000.
I don't.
There's no motion.
They don't
You
need a
just
motion.
direction.
It's an administrative action.
Yeah.
I can just do it.
Yep.
There's obviously consensus.
Yeah. Authority.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Let's start with you, Mr. McNear.
I just want to first put a shout out to Matt and his team. Outstanding job. I mean, we really appreciate the work you and your team did. Actually, all city staff, the whole group. I mean, there's been a lot of work discussed tonight. You've worked very hard at it.
I think the only thing I want to bring up is wonderful 4th of July is coming up, and I know I've seen some stuff about people asking what, we did medication for pets. I think we've done, I don't know if we've done
We did
noise
earmuffs.
canceling headphones in the past.
Noise
I don't know if
canceling
we're
earmuffs.
planning to go out there again this year as we move closer.
Those were both grants from companies, right? Walmart and the pet store.
Headphones and I don't remember where we're at with those. Are we doing those?
Somebody donated those to us.
Yeah, I think they were both donations.
Yeah.
I have not heard anything, no one,
Okay.
it wasn't on my radar, I can look into it.
Yeah, we might want to get that.
Yeah, that may have fallen through the cracks with the new police chief. No, I'm not blaming her. No, but I mean, Jay kind of ran that, so
The tread marks suffer.
she obviously has a,
Goodness.
she'll go after her staff for not telling her about it. So we'll look into it.
We'll talk to Captain Hayes later.
You're starting to sound like me.
Yeah.
That is all I had for tonight.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Ween, for, no, I appreciate that.
Councilmember
No.
Shute.
I know that we had the long discussion about budget, but I think it's obvious that, you know, we've got significant issues, and that's the reason why we're up at this dais, to make tough decisions. There's going to be a significant portion of staff or citizens that may or may not like the decisions that we're making. We're doing the best we can with the information that we have. Bear with us, I think, is really the point. We're doing the best as we can as public servants, and we always welcome feedback, positive or negative. That helps us do our jobs better and to serve you all better out there. So that's all I had to say.
Council Vice President?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything tonight. So let's move to executive session number 1. Consider entering into executive session to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege related to a proposed development project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot, that we recess into executive session for a consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319, Section B, Section 2, beginning at 8:46 p.m. and returning to regular session at 9:06 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are recessed.
I'm not staying. I'll find out the answer later. Well, it's technically my mom's 65th birthday. I mean, we celebrated over the weekend, but I also worked 65 hours last week, so I'm normal.
Whoop, can't do that. No, you can't do
I
that.
need a motion to resume.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Deaton, second, shoot, that we resume into regular session. All in favor?
Aye.
We're-
Motion.
We're back into regular session.
All right.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion McNear, second Deaton, that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.